Hello and welcome back to One True Podcast. I'm Zach Smith. I cover Baylor football for the Waco Tribune-Herald, and we're making some changes around here. As Baylor begins the season this Friday night at home against Auburn, One True Podcast is expanding. And so we're planning to do 3 episodes a week. Our first episodes will be on Tuesday with myself and someone. For example, today, our guest is Chris Vannini from The Athletic. We'll talk a little bit about Auburn and Baylor and the Big 12 as a whole and just the sport as a whole. And that's what Tuesday episodes will be. Maybe a broader look at college football, Big 12, and Baylor as a whole. Thursday episodes will not change. That will be myself, Bryce Cherry, the sports editor at the Waco Tribune-Herald, and a guest. And we will preview Baylor's opponent. For instance, this case, it will be Auburn. And we'll just dive deep into what makes that game intriguing and why, and kind of our thoughts on Baylor and Auburn and the opponent going forward with the perspective of someone who covers that team, hopefully. And then after games this week, it'll be Friday night. Then it'll be Saturday moving forward. We'll have quick recap pods with myself and Bryce and just, talking about the game, getting our quick thoughts and kind of leading up to the next week. So I'm excited about the future of this product. I think that, podcasts are just another way to consume this awesome sport. We all love college football for what it is, the tradition, the passion, the intrigue, the storylines, all of these things make college football great. And I think that podcasts, whether you're washing dishes or walking the dog or playing golf, you can pop a podcast on and kind of multitask. Or if you want to, go to the YouTube page, go to Waco Tribune-Herald on YouTube, and you can find this podcast and watch our beautiful faces talk about college football. So I hope you follow along and listen. You can find this podcast wherever your podcasts are found, at Spotify, Apple, anywhere else. And like I mentioned before, on YouTube. Or if you're a subscriber to the Waco Tribune-Herald, you can go on there and get the video right from our site. So I'm looking forward to the season. I think it's going to be a good one for Baylor, and I hope you hop on and join me for this ride. Welcome back to One True Podcast. I'm Zach Smith. Our guest today is Chris Vannini, a senior college football writer at The Athletic, co-host of Bunch Formation Podcast, Michigan State Spartan. We're here to talk some college football. Chris, how are you doing today? Thanks for joining.
I'm good to be here, man. We got actual full football this week with week 1. Excited for that. And now we just got 2 Michigan State folks here talking about Baylor, which there are a lot of connections between the schools.
There are McLane Stadium. There's a McLane Stadium in East Lansing too. Baylor wore chrome helmets when Michigan State beat them in the Cotton Bowl. They're wearing chrome helmets against Auburn. So yeah, there's some Michigan State connections here. Anyway, so you're coming to the Baylor Auburn game, right?
Yes, I live in Dallas now, so it's just a little drive down to Waco.
Have you ever been to the Baylor McLane Stadium? And I mean, what are your expectations for kind of the atmosphere, night game, chrome helmets, Friday night, all of these things? What do you expect from a expectation standpoint, from an atmosphere standpoint, I should say?
I think it should be an extremely fun environment. I've never been inside the stadium. I have been inside McLane Baseball Stadium at Michigan State. I've been down to Waco. I did a story or 2 on Matt Rule back in the day. So I've been outside the stadium. I've driven down it, past it on I-35 several times. I've not actually been inside it. So I am really looking forward to that. Sold out Friday night, week 1. Everything. I think the environment's going to be off the charts, and I cannot wait.
What do you expect for this game? Because it seems like when I look at Auburn predictions, they're all over the map. Some people have, Hugh Freeze getting fired by November. I've seen other people put him in the playoff. What do you expect from this game going against a team like Auburn, who has seemingly a ton of questions?
Yeah, I mean, Hugh Freeze comes into the game on a bit of a hot seat. His record, I believe, is the same as Brian Harson's was at this point, and that got him fired. The difference is that Hugh Freeze has been acquiring players at a higher clip, and so there has been some excitement among them. Jackson Arnold, the quarterback, among them Eric Singleton, the transfer wide receiver from Georgia Tech. So there are high expectations. Like, could they win 9 games and maybe get in the playoff mix? Like, I think it's possible. I think this first game is gonna really set the tone for them because I think on the whole the schedule is pretty manageable. You avoid Texas and you don't play Alabama till the end of the year. You do have
Hmm.
Georgia, but like after this, they've got Ball State, South Alabama. You know, if you win this game, you're starting 3-0, and then you've got momentum as you get into SEC play. And I think with Auburn, it feels like things just snowball one way or another so quickly,
Mm.
and so they need momentum to start building. And if they lose this game, with the way Hugh Freeze is talking about his quarterbacks, with how many are going to play, with the way people are criticizing him for playing too much golf, which I think is overblown. But if you're winning, nobody cares about that.
Right.
Uh, they need some momentum right now.
I think Jackson Arnold, like I know he didn't have the best um talent around him at Oklahoma, but I still think he's a capable quarterback. And like there's
Yeah.
certainly weapons. You mentioned a few of them also, Cam Coleman, right, the receiver, who like if I'm Baylor's defense, which was not the best last year, man, they're going to get tested right out of the gate with what should be they at least have some really good pieces. So I'm really excited to see like can the Baylor defense take a step against maybe not LSU's offense that they saw in the Texas Bowl last year, but still a pretty dang good offense.
Right, exactly. Like Cam Coleman, one of the best receivers in the country,
Mhm.
frankly, and he was a freshman last year and really broke out. Uh, Jackson Arnold, he got benched early on at Oklahoma last year in a weird situation. Like the offensive line was completely banged up. His top five receivers were out. So he didn't have a ton to work with. And then they pulled the plug on him right away. And you're like, well, what is his confidence, all that? He comes back and plays better in the second half of the year, but clearly wanted to move on. And this will be, I think, a much more QB friendly offense. Hugh Freeze is pretty good at that.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit and look at Baylor a little bit. From my perspective, I'm around Dave Aranda and Baylor and these players every day, and I see these players all the time, and so like maybe it's just because I'm around them all the time, but I feel like Baylor doesn't get a lot of love on the national level. Especially when you're talking about the Big 12, you're talking about Texas Tech spending money, Arizona State, coming from last to first last year, Utah bringing in all these really good players and having a really good offensive line. There's a lot. They're talking about everybody but Baylor, and so I think for you as a national guy, where does Baylor stand in kind of the national college football conversation this year? Because I think this Baylor team can be pretty good.
I think so too. I think so. Like, a lot of us thought after the Colorado loss last year that Dave Aranda was about to be fired.
Mhm.
And so it's not really, Baylor's not really in your head except for, all right, when are they pulling the plug on Dave Aranda? When do I get the list for the next coaches ready? After a couple of kind of not so great years, and then they finished the season very strong, but not to the point where you're in the playoff conversation. So it's like, well, they're good, but how much attention do we need to pay to them at the moment? And it's a program that has had such highs and lows over the last 10 years. And so when it's on a high and when they're winning and they're bringing stuff back, then you get a lot more attention on them. But you also are now in a conference where, like you said, Arizona State just made the playoff. Texas Tech is making all sorts of headlines. BYU nearly made the playoff last year. You've got a lot of good teams in the Big 12. Pretty much everybody can beat anybody in this league. So I think collectively people are waiting to kind of see with the Big 12 who stands out, who starts off 4-0, 5-0, and then that's the team we kind of focus on our is this the best team in the Big 12? Because it's impossible to predict this conference. There's no real group of tiers. It's pretty much everybody together. And so if Baylor wins this game, I think they immediately shoot up the conversation and we start talking about them hey, this is a team that could win the Big 12. The
Mhm.
same way people are talking about Iowa State after beating Kansas State in week 0. You get a big win or two under your belt, especially early on, then we start to notice. And I think the fact that this is Friday night, you got what's it on Fox, I think. You're going to
Yeah,
have a
Big
national
Fox.
audience. Big opportunity to make a statement, obviously, in week 1.
And like Baylor is going all in, this is they're wearing their black jerseys. They've got the chrome helmets. Like I said, this is their first sellout in a hot minute, I want to say. So like I think locally and within the team, there's still a lot of excitement that this program and this team can, accomplish some big goals. So, I just, it's kind of hard because I can get so like minute, all these little details about, 4 or 5 offensive linemen coming back along the offensive line and all these transfers that came in on the defensive side to plug these holes. And sometimes I listen to you or any other national podcast and I'm just screaming at my phone, like mention Baylor because they should be in the conversation with these other top teams. But that's not to hate on you or anyone. I guess I'm
Well,
closer to the action here.
I think the Big 12 would say the same thing.
Hmm.
As part of the reason they got rid of the preseason polls because nobody was talking about Arizona State for a while. But
Fair,
that's also
fair.
because they were picked last in the poll last year, but they didn't have a big win until pretty deep into the
Yeah.
season. They lost at Cincinnati early, so we didn't know how seriously to take them. This is the opportunity for Baylor
Hmm.
right here. Big national game. Pretty much, half the country is going to be watching this
Right.
game. That's the opportunity to make the statement, and that's how you break through. It's why Kansas State and Iowa State kind of did the Ireland week 0 thing too. It's like it's an opportunity for everybody to see us and talk about us. And now we come out of week 0 saying, "Hey, Matt Campbell's still a really good coach." And Avery Johnson may not get to what people think he should be getting to. So it's hard for anyone in the Big 12 to really break through unless you're Arizona State making the playoff or Texas Tech spending a lot of money and talking about it. So in a Big 10 SEC world, so that's why the Big 12 is kind of doing these things to try to get more attention on it, which is good.
Hmm.
And if you win on Friday, uh, was it Colorado play Friday as well? Is that Colorado Georgia Tech? I think it's also
Yes.
the Friday game.
Yep.
So
Yep.
like there's two big opportunities for the Big 12 to like make a statement on a
Hmm.
Friday night.
What do you like or dislike most about this Baylor team? Does anything stand out from what you know and anybody you've talked to?
The running game, and I know the loss of Pendergrass is
Hmm.
pretty big, but you got Washington back and you have a lot of offensive linemen back. This is a team that turned it around last year when they started running the ball and running the ball well. And yes, Sawyer Robertson's a very good quarterback, and you have to have that, but you got to have a running game to help them, and they did last year. And so I think the experience in that running game is probably going to be the strength of the team this year. Having Pendergrass would have been nice. Would have been obviously a big help as the number 2 rusher last year. But I still think this team should be able to move the ball on the ground pretty well.
And I think that we're going into year 2 under Jake Spavital, and I think traditionally, whether you look at his time at A&M or West Virginia, I think that year 2 under him, not only quarterbacks take a jump, but the entire offense does. And so I think you're right. Losing Dawson Pendergrass hurts, but they've got a couple 4-star kids, Michael Turner and Caden Knighton, who they are massively high on. Caden Knighton, he's made some plays in the scrimmages this fall, and so I agree. I think that the running game is huge, and if there's a spot that freshmen can play, I certainly think it's running back more than any other
Mm-hmm.
position. So,
Yeah, and like and Jake Spavital, like yes, he comes from the air raid, but he also
right,
comes from working with
right,
Dana Holgerson, who liked to run the ball a lot. And when he had the running backs to do it, especially at West Virginia, he would run the ball. And then Holgerson kind of got some crap in the air raid circles for sometimes how often he would run the ball. So it's not, I think we saw Spavital's not a guy who wants to throw the ball 70 times a game
right.
like Mike Leach would.
I'm curious what you think of Dave Aranda. He's now again in year 2 here as the defensive coordinator. You know, we hear all the time that Dave Aranda is a defensive genius, right? And he won the national championship as a defensive coordinator with LSU, all this stuff. Do you have faith in him to kind of uh, take a step to help this defense take a step year two, calling plays, basically acting as the defensive coordinator?
I mean, you would think so, just based on everything. I think it's a lot harder to just kind of evaluate that year to year because of the turnover
Hmm.
on all these rosters. Like they brought in a lot of transfers to kind of plug some holes on the defense. On paper, that's what they needed to do. Will it play out in effect on the field? I don't know. Like we don't. There's a lot of stuff we
Right.
just don't know about a lot of these teams until we see it happen. It's so hard year to year to make that happen. But obviously, Dave Aranda's a very good coach, and defensively they were better, but not great last year. And you would imagine they should be able to kind of take a step up again, especially on the back end with kind of the
Hmm.
experience that they have there. So yeah, I think it's what you would hope for. Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, looking a little bit more at the Big 12 as a whole, I know you have been on the forefront of writing and reporting about the House settlement and all this crazy just NIL, the video game, like all of this stuff. You do a great job at the Athletic of just covering it all. And so I'm just curious, like, where does, as we kind of inch towards what seems like a super league or like kind of all of this stuff, like where does the Big 12 and specifically Baylor fit in kind of all of this? If that like is I don't know if that's too broad, if that's even has an answer at this point, but like, where does Baylor fit in kind of and the Big 12 fit moving forward in college football?
I, like nobody knows what the future is going to be at this point. And the reason nobody knows is because nobody knows what the television market is going to look like. That is the thing that drives everything. Can you get more TV for this or that or what have you? That is ultimately what drives all kinds of realignment, playoff, and all that stuff. And TV is changing so rapidly that no one's quite sure yet. The NFL is going to
Hmm.
broadcast a game for free on YouTube. They're also on Peacock and Netflix and Amazon and cable TV and all this kinds of stuff. Meanwhile, you've got the Big Ten, has NBC and CBS who don't really do much else. You've got the SEC, which is all with ESPN. And so like you also have they can't all bundle the rights together because it's an antitrust violation,
Hmm.
which some have tried to like the Super League proposals that are out there, they don't pass muster because you need an antitrust violation to pool rights together and do that kind of stuff. And so until that happens in Congress, then nobody knows. I think what's more likely is you see the SEC and Big Ten do what the ACC is doing and what the Big 12 did in the past, which is unequal revenue sharing within the
Mm,
leagues,
gotcha.
which is if you're winning more, you get more money than the other teams. If you're Ohio State, should you be getting the same payout from the conference as Purdue? Now, equal revenue sharing is what made the Big Ten as powerful as it was because it lifted everybody up. But we've kind of reached a point now where the haves want more. And so they're probably going to eventually take more. And if
Right.
you're Purdue, what can you do? It's either that or leave the conference. You're not going to do that.
No.
So uh, instead of kicking somebody out, which I don't know if it's really doable, you just take some of the money from them. And if you do that, is there enough room to add teams to your conference to increase the payouts? I
Hmm.
don't know if there is. I think we saw that with the
Hmm.
Big 12 in Memphis and the Big 12 turning down Memphis, which was like, I don't know if there's much value left with these conferences that are so big. You're only adding somebody if they're going to add to the pie for everybody.
Right.
And we don't know that because I don't think ESPN and all these media networks know yet because it's changing so rapidly.
And Dave, down at coaching school in San Antonio, the conference where all the high school head coaches meet, he had an interesting comment on the panel about like how there's going to be kind of a have and a have nots in college football. And there's going to be some people that are taking charters and there's going to be some people that are riding buses. And he was very clear that what's happening on the field now, this year, this next few years, is going to decide that. So I know that whatever happens, however it's divvied up and however, whoever schools get what money and all that, it's on the forefront of coaches' minds right now, even if it's years in the future.
Yeah.
It's if it's going to happen years in the
You,
future. So
you have to win now. I mean, the only reason
Mhm.
Texas State is going to the Pac-12 next year is because they became
Right.
a pretty respectable football program at the right time. The only reason a big reason the playoff expanded from 4 to 12 is because UCF went undefeated 2 years in a row. And people realized it kind of wasn't fair that they didn't get a shot. And so it just comes down to being the right team at the right time. I mean, Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati getting into the Big 12 at the time that they did
Hmm.
is because they were winning at that time. So given the way everything is right now, it would behoove you to be a very good football program right now, pretty much for everybody. And so if that happens, and in 3-4 years when things start changing again, if you're a top program, you will get more looks than you would otherwise. And that's all you can do right now if you're a coach.
One more question on this year on the Big 12. Who's your pick? What do you like? It's a chaotic conference. I think I've heard up to 9 different teams in the Big 12 title game. Like, who do you have in the Big 12 title game, and who do you have winning it all?
I had Arizona State winning it. And I know in a conference like this, it's difficult to say, oh, back to back, it's going to happen because of so much variance. And Arizona State won a bunch of close games last year, and that usually doesn't carry over year to year. But I also just think they're going to be a much better team. They bring
Mhm.
almost everything back. I think Sam Levitt, former Michigan State quarterback, is going to take a big step up in year two. They've got a collection of decent running backs to fill Cam Scadaboo. The defense brings everything back. Defense should be a lot better. So I like what Arizona State's got this year. If BYU still had Jake Retzlaff, maybe I go with them. But I think Arizona State's just got the personnel and the experience coming off of last year's team that I like them. Now, I think history in the Big 12 will show you it's probably not going to turn out that way. But when I look at everything on paper, I like Arizona State this year.
And I am so curious with Texas Tech. Like the whole Texas Tech experiment, like I think moving forward, what Texas Tech is doing, spending all this money, is going to work in terms of building a program. Now, can you do that in 1 year? That I like, do you think the Texas Tech experiment is going to work this season? How quickly do you think what Texas Tech is doing will kind of take hold?
Well, I mean, they've been pretty open. Like, they got to make the Big 12 championship game
Mm,
this year, probably. Like, they've never done that as a
right.
program. And so, some people don't like that they talk as much about the money. Cody Campbell would tell you it's helpful and it makes them more attractive, which I agree with. And Joey McGuire, like, he's done a decent job there. I think he has the most wins through 3 years of any coach who's been there. But if everybody knows you have a $30-40 million roster and you don't make the Big 12 championship game, it's not too hard for Texas Tech to be an appealing job to more accomplished coaches.
Hmm.
And suddenly, even Joey McGuire with a pretty good record of Texas Tech and Cody Campbell says, we can go get Coach X, who's won championships. Like, Texas Tech is suddenly a much more appealing job
Right.
with that money than they were otherwise. So the pressure's on this year. Will it work? I don't know, but I know not doing it will almost guarantee you won't. And that's kind of the argument boosters are making. Like Ole Miss, like people said, Ole Miss went all in last year on trying to make the playoff with what they did in the portal. It's like, yeah, well, if they don't, then they're definitely not going to make the playoffs. So
Mm.
like, what choice do you have at that point? And so that's what Texas Tech is doing. And I don't think it's going away. Cody Campbell, the billionaire booster region former player, he's not going anywhere. He is going to keep spending money on Texas Tech, and the people he knows are going to keep spending money on Texas Tech. It's not like a one-time thing. So Will it work this year? I don't know, but they're playing the way college football works these days, and it makes their program more appealing.
It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be fun. Well, I want to end it with this. I know we've been talking a lot of football, but Baylor women's basketball is opening the season in France, in Paris against Duke. I'm going because I cover that team, and it lines up with a Baylor football bye week. So I'm taking my wife and we're going to Paris for a week in November. As someone who just got back from Paris and Italy, right? Where all did you go in Europe this summer?
Yeah, I went Rome, Naples, and Paris over about 2 weeks, about a month ago, first time.
What do we need to do? I know it's going to be November, so probably the beach is out, so it's going to be cold. But Paris, what do we need to do?
I guess I'm not sure. That is a good point about the weather. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but we didn't do like a ton. We went to the Louvre. I walked to Notre Dame, and we did the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower is cool. Like, it's like the cliche thing, but like
Right.
while you're there, like, you got to see it.
When in Paris,
I would also say, like, you don't need tickets to get the elevator to go out very quickly.
Mm.
I would buy tickets we walked up to like the middle.
Okay.
It wasn't bad. But no, you gotta buy your tickets like a month or 2 weeks ahead of time, depending on what ticket you get. So just make sure you've planned it enough ahead of time to know what you're doing. But otherwise, like, just walking along the Seine River. Now, it was the summer, but that was honestly like really cool and just relaxing. They've got some really nice kind of walkways right along the river. That's pretty cool.
I mean, I don't know how many times I can mention that we're from Michigan on this podcast, but I don't think the weather cold weather does not scare me at all, even though it's 100 degrees right now. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, man, thanks for doing this. Thanks for coming on. Tell, where can people find you and follow you and read you and listen to you? Yeah, all that.
Yeah, just, I mean, theathletic.com for all of our college football stuff. I'm at Chris Vannini on pretty much every social media there is. And David Ubben and I have a new podcast, college football podcast, called Bunch Formation. We started it a couple months ago. It's been going really great. We're having a lot of fun. So I hope people check that out as well.
Beautiful. Well, Chris, thanks for doing this, and I'll see you this next week at McLane Stadium.
See you, man.
See you.